I'm taking on the task of distilling some of the wisdom that life has given me in my 30 years and putting it into an ethical model that I'm calling Vibe Ethics. And this video will be a bit of a cursory overview of ethical discussions that I'm aware of and talking a little bit about how Vibe Ethics fits. The purpose here really is to incite some conversation, to get some people dialoguing with me who have bits of the puzzle that I haven't quite thought through myself. I am not a professional ethical theorist. I have not taken a single class on ethics. I have not read a lot of ethical literature. What I have done is I've been in a lot of conversations with people about ethics, both part of an official format, the philosophy club that I led for a while, as well as just in interpersonal life, both in this kind of like self-development space and the spiritual space, and just with like being bros and being friends and talking about what's the right way to live. So, without further ado, my main understanding of ethics is that it's concerned with the question of what ought we to do? What should we do? When I think about that question, what should we do? And whenever anybody uses that word should without really grounding it, it kind of triggers me. What I've discovered is that the question, what should we do, is grounded in some kind of end state goal. What should we do in order to achieve an outcome? And that outcome could be like sustained life. You should eat this sandwich if you're starving to the point of death. It comes out formulated like an ethical recommendation. There's a should. There's a higher order, a good that we're pointing towards, and that's the preservation of life. But whether or not we state that end goal of preservation of life, it's kind of implied in our system of shoulds and oughts. And different ethical philosophies have a different idea of like what that end state is and what are the main factors in achieving that end state. And so different parts of our experience and different data points come into sharp focus as those things that are morally relevant. What we're going to do in Vibe Ethics is we're going to hone in that focus of ethical relevance into personal life experience and in a sort of intuition about the general state of things outside of ourselves, the general state of things inside of ourselves, and how those can be harmonized in order to reach particular goals, but goals that are the usual ones, which are good and beautiful and wellness for all of humanity and all of that kind of stuff. That's where we're trying to get to. And we're going to look at ourselves, we're going to look outside, and we're going to see if we can make it. Okay, but first, ethics. The first ethical systems I was aware of and was subject to from a very early age were rule-based ones. Do the thing, do right, follow God, obey the law. All of those things will create an outcome of, I don't know, you being a good person. Sometimes it's not super grounded. Sometimes it is more for, the common good, universal well-being and all of this. The most popular ethical model that I categorize, at least under this rule-based ethics, is utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is we're going to try to increase the good for all people. We're going to try to increase everybody's happiness, everybody's well-being. And that's not inherently rule-based, but the strategies that people take in order to increase everybody's well-being end up being based on statistics, based off of scientific understandings, and they imply a particular path to follow. They imply that you can optimize your positive impact by donating money to certain causes and not to others, by expanding your field of awareness to the global population, considering matters that are outside of your own sphere of experience. And when something is outside of your own sphere of experience, how do you interact with it? Well, you interact by the rules, the things that you tell, the things that you think through. The rules tell you how to engage in this greater sphere of utilitarian ethics. There's another ethical model, which I have been very sympathetic to for a while, And this rhymes with self-development. It rhymes with spirituality. It comes from our Greek boys who wanted some flourishing, and they thought that virtue was the way to get it. Virtue is this idea that we have particular qualities that can enhance the good in ourselves. And then when we enhance the good in ourselves, we enhance the good outside of ourselves. And so virtue ethics puts focus on like what kind of being am I becoming? And the assumed and credible add-on effect of that is that you'll be a force of good for the world. Now, it still remains to be determined what that definition of good is, what falls into that category, what do we find beautiful? Is there objective beauty? But now we've turned into this internal space in order to find the levers of ethics that we can pull. And the questions that we're asking about our actions and our studies and our thinking is, who is this making me become? But vibrational ethics asks the question, what orientation enhances consonant harmonics in a shared field? And we'll break that down. So I said that we're answering the question of ought. What ought we to do? It's tied to some end state. The end state here is a beautiful harmonic relation between what's happening inside of me and what's happening outside. It's an appropriate fit between myself and the environment, between me and my friends, between me and my work, between me and this moment that I'm living inside of. It's concerned with enhancing my own experience of living and thriving and feeling well and good inside of myself, while also contributing to goodness, efficiency, effectiveness, beauty, fun, constructive criticism, appropriate tension and resistance in the outside world. So vibe ethics is getting us towards these harmonics, and not all harmonics are equal. Ask Viktor Frankl. He would say that anybody's best expression within a concentration camp is just not as good as in a flourishing community of close-knit friends. And that's to recognize that, like, concentration camps are a thing. They are a vibe. Yes, this goes that deep. There is a harmony, which means like a moving dynamic of different parts, but it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty. And we want more of those pretty ones. We want more of like a few friends getting together on Sunday morning for a brunch and talking about deep shit that's ultimately going to enhance their experience of living. More of that. Less of the concentration camp. And harmonies aren't just pleasant. They're not just like a nice time. I mean, the good ones, obviously. The good ones can be pleasant. They can also be difficult. They can be the ones that cause us to grow. So you enter a martial arts dojo and you're not just looking for a pleasant time. You're looking for difficulty, resistance. You're potentially looking for a conflict with a desired goal outcome. And so you ought to align your expectations and your internal vibe with what's possible in that external vibe. And it's not just going to be cozy pleasantness. In that case, it's going to be an appropriate orientation of wanting the difficulty, of skewing it positively. And harmonies can get you somewhere. You can better share your feelings and your intimate moments when you've set the stage, when you've already gone through the little dance of like, how are you, what's going on, kind of clearing the emotional air, putting on the candles, starting making dinner, getting the wine out, again, getting that sick ass music, and then starting to ease into a moment of tenderness and sharing. Much better than trying to share your feelings when an argument has already started and there's already resistance between one person and the other. A particular type of harmony lends itself to a particular type of outcome, which makes it a good focus of attention and energy if we want to be effective at whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. And if you don't relate to effectiveness and achieving kind of language, even if you're just following the flow of life, you recognize that flow is going to take you to some more beautiful places if you're in tune with the harmonics, if you're able to navigate into situations of better harmonic qualities, steer away from those pretty ugly resistant ones. So there are better moments, better environments, and better vibes for particular kinds of outcomes. And vibrational ethics is fundamentally concerned with efficiency. You're able to match your expression with what's going on in the external sphere in order to enhance the power of your action and the goodness of the objective world without. This gets into why vibes aren't merely preference. You have some favorite vibes, but there's also just better vibes. Remember concentration camps? They're not great vibes. There's really good vibes out there, though. And fortunately, you can intuit them. You're able to feel it. You feel when it hits. When it hits, and that's real. That's real and meaningful. Yeah, sure. You can be deceived. You could be closed off to a vibe that would ultimately be good. You can have a vibe that you think is good, that everybody else around you is just not enjoying that you're putting out. There is this balance of attuning to what really is a good vibe. It's not always what you have in your mind, but the good vibe exists. Some vibes are better adapted to certain outcomes, which we deem as good, than other vibes are. There are plenty of vibes that I would almost never recommend because the outcomes they afford are just the outcomes that we do not want. And where this is going is we're tying all of this back to the possibility of perceiving these, that we have a sense for what's happening inside and outside and how those can conjoin to create more of these beautiful, good vibes, how to ramp up those vibes. They call that amplification in sound dynamics, which is, I love it. I just love that there are so many metaphorical terms for vibrational ethics. So we're going to amplify those vibes, bring more of this good, fun, bright, positive resistance, all of this stuff into the world. Okay, so we've moved beyond rule-based ethics. We've kind of gone through virtue ethics into a kind of like virtuous plus external reality synchronization ethics that we're calling vibe ethics. Now I am going to bring back the rules a little bit, or some suggestions and recommendations, some oughts that come out of vibe ethics. What ought you to do in a vibrational ethical system? The first ought in a world where there are good vibes and bad vibes is you ought to be able to tell the difference. You ought to be able to trust your perception of the situation, which, as we said, it can be erroneous. You might have plenty of filters on reality that keep you from seeing what's good. You might have a totally egoic view of the world that doesn't put any salience or reference on how other people are feeling in the space or what the objective good is for the world and for us. So you approach this ought by developing skills of self-awareness, developing skills of social awareness and environmental awareness, as well as just diving into the best wisdoms of the world, going into philosophy and spirituality by like listening really closely to your friends and then actually kind of being really critical about what y'all believe and what's really happening. So the first ought is to recognize an opportunity to grow awareness of beauty and good and harmonics and all of this, and a responsibility to grow that awareness as well. I love this glow. The next ought follows naturally. So after identifying the good vibes and the bad vibes, then embody the vibes that you want to see more of in the world. You'll have a direct effect on the sphere around you. You'll have a direct effect on that moment, on contributing to the collective vibe, on enhancing your ability to respond to good vibes. And I think that you'll have a kind of ripple effect of the vibes that you put out there are being trained into your community. They'll get resonated between you and your friends and the people that interact with you, and you'll just kind of create more of the vibe that you want in the world. Great artists are often the first to catch a vibe and express it publicly. And in that, they instantiate it in the world. And you have the opportunity to do that. The vibes that you want to see, you can create. And then people will pick it up and then they'll keep doing it. And it'll amplify it and it'll resonate around the world. That's great. And then the last one, which we didn't get into this too much here, because I think it's just so big that we need to explore it another time. But in this dynamic, relational, vibratory, everything's kind of moving, what's inside is moving, what's outside is moving, and the vibe passes from moment to moment and changes. In that patterned and dynamic system, I'm not just a single self, a particular object in a particular static environment, and all things are equal moment to moment. No, there are moments where you'll be right at that peak of the vibe. You've got the opportunity to do something really good, to lend a helping hand, to speak that kind or constructively critical word, to give that loving gesture, to do the frickin' dishes, whatever it is. There'll be a moment where you feel that that's going to land and you need to be able to respond to it then. In vibe ethics, before too long, we'll get into a big discussion about improvisation. Improvisation has to do with responding to the moment, almost impulsively, but in a calibrated way. You want to be able to respond well in the moment without too much reflection, because that is going to help you hit those peaks when the vibe is high, when the timing's right, to say that vulnerable thing when it'll land rather than when it'll fall flat and you'll just kind of like feel cold for not having gotten the reception that you wanted. No, timing is important and it can't always be planned. You can structure things as much as you want, but there will be moments that come and go, opportunities that pass your way and then recede into the background, and 2 seconds too late, you say the thing, make the gesture, and it just doesn't make sense or have the impact that you wanted. So timing. So to wrap up this discussion, how does vibe ethics stack up against the other ethical theories? Well, it hasn't triumphed over them. I don't think we can just do away with utilitarianism, because there are goods that you get through utilitarianism that aren't yet baked into vibe ethics. For example, utilitarianism gives you an awareness of the suffering of people on continents that are far away from you, and the awareness that you can make a meaningful impact to those people. But then, just to put in a good word for vibe ethics really quick, if you take utilitarianism to its fullest extent, what you end up doing is devaluing all of the people around you, because they might be like well enough off already. And so the people of your moral concern are the ones who are truly suffering in some other land outside of your social sphere. And then so you should redirect that attention away from your life and away from your particular favored loved ones. Give that attention and energy over to some other part of the globe. And when philosophy starts to tell me that I should not favor and love my friends and family, something's broken. I'm out. I'm not going to do philosophy that way. So, hence vibe ethics. Yeah, and like I said, I haven't thought this through too much, but I think there's a really nice marriage between virtue ethics and vibe ethics, because virtue ethics seems to govern a lot of what's internal, like I'm developing internal virtuous qualities. And the Greek guys, they seem to have this conception that the external world can have some virtue as well. Like there can be beauty and good, and there's some virtuous situations versus unvirtuous situations. So when we're talking about vibe ethics, we could be talking about the fittedness of internal virtue with external virtue. potentially. Open to somebody's more developed ideas on the matter who's doing some thinking in this space. Cool. And for making it this far into this discussion, I'm just going to drop here two of the biggest pieces that inspire me to continue on this project. Some of the bigger picture ideas that, for me, make this ethics necessary and make me want to align with the Vibe ethical model. Big idea one: a good society is the one that maximizes the extent to which each of its participants can be authentic or be themselves without damaging one another. And then big idea two is that the whole is stronger when each of its individual parts acts according to the best expression of its own nature. And as I've said, there's more to come. We'll be fleshing this out in a lot of different angles. There are some things that still need to be thought out. I believe that this theory has a lot of power and encompasses a lot of different domains of knowledge. And so I kind of need help. There are only so many books and things that I can read. I'm going about it in the order that I feel like is the best. But I'm getting an incredible amount of value from people supporting the work by leaving some comments and ideas for me to digest. So if anything in this video stuck out to you, and you've got another thinker on the matter, you have your own developed thoughts, you have a contention with anything that's said here, or you've got an open question based off of what we've discussed so far, let me know. It'll go down into a journal. It might inform new content. We might have like a big discussion thread in the comments. Who knows what could come out of it, but it'll be a vibe.